Mugi was a degenerate who was secretly in love with his hot teacher, but hides it for fear of rejection. However, when his naughty classmate discovers his secret, she offers to be his friend with all the benefits, and after clapping for months, he falls for her instead. Before they started smashing, Hanabi was madly in love with her teacher, Kanae. But the sad thing was that Kanae only saw her like a sister because he was into a hot music teacher named Akane. One morning, she started flirting with Kanae, and Hanabi got jealous and walked out because she couldn't stomach it. She ran into Mugi, who looked just as sad because Akane wasn't into him either. Devastated, Mugi grabbed Hanabi and he led her to a corner where they got intimate.
Yeah, boy.
All the while, Mugi thought about Akane and Hanabi thought about Kanae, and they both figured that they were just a temporary fix. When Kanae first started as the new homeroom teacher, Hanabi was excited since it meant seeing him every day. But over time, he grew too attached to Akane, and it crushed her to watch some chick with mutated melons steal her man. One night, she invited him over for dinner, hoping the homemade meal would seal the deal. But nothing happened. As she walked him off, she couldn't help but wonder if he didn't want her because she was dead flat. At school, while Hanabi was barely holding on to her sanity, two guys started raving about how hot Akane was. She was close to unaliving them when she bumped straight into Akane herself, only to realize those dudes weren't wrong. Akane apologized for being sloppy, and that was when Mugi showed up to help her pick up the documents she dropped. Hanabi immediately noticed the familiarity and could tell from his eyes that he was just another one of her pet toys. Regardless, Mugi started talking to Hanabi and he told her he knew Akane was into someone else. One day during break, Mugi opened up to Hanabi about Akane and told her she used to be his private tutor. While he was talking, Akane walked past and he couldn't help but stare, which triggered Hanabi because she hated everything about Akane, causing them to argue. But over time, they began seeing each other more frequently. One day, at Mugi's place, Hanabi grew tired of thinking about Kanae, so she looked at Mugi and had a crazy idea. When she hugged him, Mugi thought the same thing too, and somehow, they ended up in a child-making position. But when Mugi noticed that Hanabi felt uncomfortable, he told her to picture him as Kanae. When she did, Mugi went ahead and kissed her, and from there, everything was electric because he made her floodgates lose control a few dozen times. However, their session ended abruptly when Hanabi received a text from Kanae, so Mugi told her to decide if she'd like to continue their sneaky freak-offs. After some time apart, they agreed to a friends with benefits relationship and made a pact not to catch feelings and that everything would end the moment either of them ended up with their crush. Currently, Hanabi tells Mugi to join her so they can walk home together, but he insists that he's still busy with class duties. One of his friends offers to relieve him of his duties, while Hanabi's friend, Iken, shows up and asks to join her home. Though it's been a minute since they last talked, Hanabi turns her down because she's already going home with Mugi. As they leave, other guys in class call Mugi a lucky man for bagging Hanabi, while Iken hates that she was left behind, though she doesn't show it. On the way home, Mugi stops to kiss Hanabi, but is interrupted when a chick named Noriko shows up and yells at them. A few years ago, she was friends with Mugi, and they lived together in the same apartment building. Anytime they went out to play, their tutor would address them as a couple, so it got into Noriko's head, and she started seeing Mugi as her Prince Charming. It got so bad that she dedicated an entire year to cutting out all the guys in her life to become the perfect type of lady Mugi would fall in love with. But in the end, her efforts went unnoticed because she didn't exist in Mugi's world. Currently, she grabs Mugi away from Hanabi, but gets heartbroken when she's introduced only as a childhood friend. Hanabi sees her and calls her a walking headache, because she recalls how much of a red flag she was. But Noriko claps back, calling her a trifling hoe. She wonders why someone that flat got to be in a relationship with Mugi, but Hanabi snaps and chokeholds Noriko, warning her to get her hands off Mugi. The following day, Mugi tells Hanabi she shouldn't have been that harsh on Noriko. But Hanabi reminds him that Noriko likes him and that he should end things with her. Curious, Mugi wonders if she's getting jealous already, but she tells him not to get his hopes up because she's only possessive with her stuff. In the meantime, Noriko gets on a train and starts fantasizing about how she'd like to be clapped by Mugi. Though it's not real, she likes that she can create sweet moments like that in her mind, but she fears she might end up like Harley Quinn if she keeps doing it. The next day, Mugi buys her lunch, and she immediately falls in love with him all over again. so she joins him to eat out with Hanabi. Midway through, Hanabi tries to stir up some romance and feed Mugi her meat, but Noriko jumps in and gulps it down instead. However, Noriko starts crashing out because Hanabi is getting all of Mugi's attention, so Hanabi chokes her and threatens to return her to the zoo, insisting that her real parents live there. Pissed, Noriko tells her she's using Mugi, claiming she only landed him because of the stretched holes she's carrying. When Hanabi ignores her, she runs away, promising to be back for Mugi. Later that day, Hanabi helps Kane drop some documents in a prep room. When she's done, she realizes they're alone and looks forward to something happening between them. But before she can pull him in to steal a kiss, he gets distracted by the song Akane plays in the other room and starts complimenting how good she is with the piano. Pissed, Hanabi takes out her frustration on Mugi by forcing him into a karaoke session with her. When she's done proving that Squidward sings better, she tears up, knowing she can't have the person she's in love with. On seeing her mood, Mugi sympathizes with her because he's going through the same thing, though he's better at handling rejection. He then pulls Hanabi in and kisses her sorrows away.
I'm gonna come.
Then makes her cream herself to insanity. The following day, while Iken is on her way to school, she recalls the conversation Noriko had with Hanabi and starts to wonder if Mugi is using Hanabi. When she arrives at school and sees Hanabi, she becomes excited, though they don't get to spend that much time together. Later, while Hanabi cleans up a lab, two chicks approach her, and one asks to talk to her about her relationship. When Mugi learns about it, he advises Hanabi to listen because she doesn't have female friends apart from Iken. The way he looks at her gives her the impression that he's about to kiss her, but she's shocked when he pats her on the head instead, wishing her good luck. Meanwhile, Hanabi wonders what's going on because the way Mugi touched her is making her think he's her real boyfriend. During lunch break, she sits with the girls from earlier and learns that one of them, Ayumi, has a friend, Hiro, who she grew up with. Ayumi dated Hiro, but their relationship took a turn when Hiro went ahead and cheated with Megan Fox. Despite that, Ayumi was still simping for him and even opted to become his side piece. But she got carried away by an older dude with more experience and is now confused about who to pick. After listening to everything, Hanabi freaks out, because despite being in a love triangle herself, Ayumi's case is more messed up because she can't choose between the guys. Deep down, Hanabi knows she'd dump Mugi in a heartbeat if she could sort things out with Kanae, which is why she can't relate to Ayumi's issues. Ayumi's friend advises Ayumi to pick the older dude because he's fine, and while Ayumi thinks about it, Hanabi tells her to endure the pain of liking both of them. But Ayumi tells her she's pained only because she has to choose, and she's scared of making the wrong choice. Hanabi's brain melts in shock after she hears this, so she joins Iken outside, interested to know about her love life. When she asks Iken if she has a crush on anyone, Iken freaks out, and from her reaction, Hanabi realizes that she has someone. She then asks if she fell for her crush because of his pecs, and though Iken admits that those are involved, she says that it's not the only reason she fell for the person. Hanabi gets excited because Iken shares the same thought with her. Meanwhile, Iken thinks she asked the question because of Mugi. After that, Hanabi invites Iken over to spend the night. But when Iken arrives home, she gets nervous at the thought of being in bed with Hanabi. Later that day, she pulls up at Hanabi's place and becomes shy when Hanabi gets the door. Once in, she calms herself down because they're just girls and looks forward to having fun with Hanabi. A few years ago, before she became friends with Hanabi, Iken stood alone one day on a bus when a weird dude pulled up behind her and tried to crack a nut. Iken grew scared as it went on, but she felt relieved when Hanabi showed up and scared the ugly lunatic away. At the next stop, Iken thanked Hanabi for saving her, but Hanabi brushed it off like it was no big deal. Coincidentally, they were both taking the same exam, so they went off together. On the way, Hanabi made sure to hold Iken's hand because she could tell she was still traumatized from what had just happened. From that moment, Iken developed feelings for her, and Hanabi became her first love, though she never said a word about it. In the present, Iken listens to Hanabi as she narrates Ayumi's story, and she finds Hanabi's take on it oddly amusing. Hanabi wonders if being with someone because of his specs will make her end up alone, but as she tries figuring it out, she becomes tired and sleepy. That night, while they lie down to sleep, Iken's heart starts pounding because the bed is small and Hanabi's skin is brushing against her. As she struggles to resist the urge to eat her cake, Hanabi asks about the person she loves, and she ends up giving into the urge to kiss her. She pauses midway to confirm if Hanabi really likes Mugi, since she's been watching them closely this whole time. After seeing Iken in tears, Hanabi opens up about her own feelings for Kanai and explains how she wound up with Mugi. Despite that, Iken begs to replace Mugi, so she eats Hanabi's cake all night, hoping to change her mind. The next morning, Hanabi remains in bed after waking up because her emotions are flickering. Her mom calls out to her, and when she doesn't answer, the woman enters the room and sends her to get supplies at the mall. On the way, she flashes back to some dude she rejected recently and realizes from what happened yesterday that it's her first time being the object of someone else's desires. Later, while taking a stroll to clear her head, Hanabi spots Noriko but ignores her like she doesn't exist. Pissed, Noriko crashes out and starts begging her not to take Mugi away, but rather than listen, Hanabi just keeps walking. She's weighed down by the fact that she's stuck in the same situation as Ayumi because she might end up broken and alone. About 4 years earlier, Mugi had transferred as the new student in school and instantly earned the title of Cool Kid within seconds of arriving. Girls were already drooling over him, and his friends weren't spared either, but he was their main target. Among them, Mei stood out the most, especially since she was skinny but carried Megasonic milkers, while all the other boys were basically auditioning to reincarnate as the zipper on her skirt. Mugi bagged her quickly and clapped her under his sheets.
Yeah, boy.
All the while, he fell in love with her because she was always lonely, and it made their romantic sessions feel unreal. At some point, he started questioning reality because being with her felt so good, but deep down, he was scared of what their future would look like. In the present, Mugi wakes up shocked to find the little man pointing at 12 o'clock. And as he realizes it's because he misses Mei's cake, Hanabi walks in, forcing him to hide under his sheets. Despite his attempt, Hanabi figures out pretty quickly that he's having a hard time, so she waits for his approval to unmask his mutated sausage. At that moment, Mugi recalls the time in the past when he had to say goodbye to Mei because he was transferring schools. He cried because he knew he wouldn't see her again, but Mei told him not to since he still had Akane, who he was madly in love with. Deep down, she was just grateful no one found out about her sneaky freaky relationship with Mugi. But since she was going to miss him, she reached out for one last passionate experience. Back in the present, Mugi tries to stop Hanabi from massaging his sausage because she's too skilled, and he knows he'll fold. But after giving it a second thought, he lets her drain him dry and passes out. Meanwhile, Hanabi reflects on the last time she saw Iken and feels guilty because she was too scared to touch her. That evening, Mugi wakes up and realizes he's a finished man, since he passed out for hours after a mere body massage from Hanabi. Hanabi teases him, saying it's because he's gotten too comfortable, then jumps on top of him when she notices he's not getting up. As she tries to convince him to go another round, she ends up crying because she realizes she has feelings for him. Seeing this, Mugi smiles and takes her out on a date. At the restaurant, Hanabi spots Akane leaving with some dude named Takuya and wonders if they're just friends, but she deads the thought as soon as she notices the way Takuya holds her. Before leaving, Akane winks at Hanabi and tells her to keep everything she saw a secret, while Mugi stays quiet, acting like he doesn't even exist. The next morning, when Hanabi arrives at school, she spots Akane with Kanai and doesn't look away until Mugi shows up. That's when Mugi casually mentions that he knows the guy Akane was with last night, since they were both tutored by her back in the day. He assumes the dude was just helping Akane out with something. But when Hanabi hears this, she instantly realizes the only thing that guy could possibly be helping with is lifting Akane's skirt. With that thought, she walks away, thinking to herself that love really does make people blind. She wonders why Mugi can't see the truth that's right in front of him, and concludes it's because they're simply two different people. As she processes all of this, Hanabi suddenly rushes off and confronts Akane, asking straight up if the man from last night was her boyfriend. But Akane just smiles and says Takuya is only a friend, nothing more. The answer makes Hanabi suspicious, because Akane never said Takuya was her student, especially after telling her to keep him a secret. On giving it a second thought, Hanabi starts to realize that Akane must already know about her feelings for Kanai. When the bell rings for the next period, Akane dips, and as she walks away, Hanabi notices the lingering smell of cigarettes on her and the fact that she's still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. Sometime in the past, Akane sat alone on a bus, quietly enjoying the way most of the guys who boarded wanted to sit beside her. The feeling of being desired made her happy, and as she thought about it, she remembered a moment from her school days when she met a guy named Seitu in the hallway. Seitu stopped her because she had dropped something, and even though he was the boy her friend had a crush on, Akane made a move on him. She was aware her friend was watching, but because she loved the attention Seitu was giving her, she didn't stop, even though she felt nothing for him. So when her friend couldn't take it anymore, she ran off in tears and cried her eyes out. Later, Akane showed up to confront her, but the poor girl ended up apologizing for running away. She claimed it was only because Akane looked so good with Seitu, and though she was clearly hurt, she said she was fine and asked Akane to stay friends. On watching it all unfold, Akane didn't feel guilty. Instead, she felt like throwing up because she never wanted to be treated the way she treated her friend. She felt superior to her friend from that time, and since then, she took pleasure in exploiting people. Takuya, the guy she slept with yesterday, was just one of her latest victims, and Alfieug knew he was getting played. He made sure to enjoy every inch of her before she moved to the next victim. Before him, she had started seeing Kanai, only because she noticed that Hanabi was in love with him, and the idea of having him wrapped around her finger thrilled her, which was why she agreed to talk with him privately when he asked to meet after school. Just a few seconds after Kanai left, Hanabi arrived to confront her, and deep down, Akane was already expecting her. When Hanabi asked about Takuya, Akane claimed that he was just a friend, and she smiled at Hanabi's reaction, insisting it was her fault things had turned out this way. A few years ago, when Hanabi first joined the school, she stood out as one of the best students, and since other guys admired her, she appeared on Akane's radar. From then on, Akane made it her mission to hurt her, and she enjoyed the sadness on Hanabi's face whenever she was with Kanai. Some time ago, Hanabi was alone with Kanai in a classroom, and while they talked, Akane noticed how happy she was talking to him. So she ruined their moment by walking into the class to see Kanai. Currently, Akane rushes off to her next class, but before leaving, she tells Hanabi they should meet in the music room and talk after school. Around sunset, Kanai waits for Akane in the music room and starts to realize how boring and unsettling his life is and how, about 3 months ago, when he started out as a teacher, he was happy that his late mother would be proud of him if she was still alive. On the way to HS job, he saw Akane for the first time and fell for her only because her long hair reminded him of his late mother. To him, it was love at first sight, but as they continued seeing each other, she felt too good to be true. Back in the present, Akane finally shows up in the music room, and Kanai freaks out because he wants to confess his feelings. When he summons the courage to do it, Hanabi overhears and runs off. Feeling sad, she tries to cry her eyes out, but when the tears don't come, she realizes that she doesn't have to, because she isn't wrong for liking Kanai so much. However, the thought of Kanai getting into a relationship with Akane haunts her, and she starts regretting why she never confessed her feelings when she still had the chance. As she thinks about it, she realizes that she didn't do it because she thought the truth would chase Kanai away. But her other personality appears and tells her that she was wrong for not opening up to him. After she leaves school, she heads over to Mugi's place to tell him about Akane. But before she rings the doorbell, she changes her mind because he might get hurt. On her way home, Iken confronts her, asking why she isn't going off to Mugi's place. Right then, Hanabi realizes that Iken has been following her, and she starts to wonder why she likes her so much. While thinking about it, she hugs Iken and starts crying, begging for forgiveness if the hug means too much. But since Iken is far too in love with her, she ignores all that and kisses her. One thing leads to another, and they end up in Hanabi's place, where Iken struggles to hold back the urge to get freaky with her. Despite knowing what's going to come next, Hanabi looks away because Iken was her friend. She didn't want to ruin their relationship with a 5-minute hanky-panky session. But since Iken was too thirsty to think straight, she ignored Hanabi and pulled her in for another passionate kiss. Midway through, she stops and tells Hanabi to let her know if she isn't interested anymore. But Hanabi says she won't be able to do that. When asked why, she tells Iken it's because she cares about her, and Iken understands that she means just as friends. She knows she's special to Hanabi, but wants to use that to her advantage and develop plot with her. Eventually, Hanabi yields, but while it goes down, she starts fantasizing about how it would feel when she tells Kanai how much much she loves him. But she snaps out of it when Iken asks what she'd like her to do to her. Hanabi declines answering the question because she's all fired up from what Iken has done already, and she feels she might lose control if she opens up. However, Iken sweet talks her into opening up, and after she gets all she needs from her, she touches her, and rain begins to fall, but not from the sky. After climaxing a few dozen times, Hanabi's other personality appears and teases her because now she can't go back to being normal friends with Iken. She mocks her for taking advantage of Iken's feelings and starts comparing her to Akane, saying they're no different from each other. As that personality fades, Hanabi acknowledges her fate of being inferior to Akane, but she decides that she'll change no matter what it takes. So the next morning, she confronts Akane, who comes clean about how she likes being desired by both Mugi and Kanai. A few years ago, when Hanabi was still a kid, she was always sad, but she made sure she never cried in front of her mom. Her father left when she was born, and her mother was left to face sadness like never before. Hanabi felt the pain too, though she couldn't process losing something that was never there. While she thought about everything, Kanai showed up looking for her because she had run away from home, and her mom was worried. On seeing him, her mood changed, and how she saw the world changed too, because his presence made her reality more vibrant. Deep down, she tried to hold herself back from bursting into tears, but when she saw Kanai up close like that, she gave in and hugged him. Currently, she recalls this while lying in bed and starts wondering why Kanai, who used to be her safe space back then, is now choosing to abandon her. As she thinks about it, Iken turns around to greet her good morning. But for a split second, Hanabi sees Akane's face instead. Meanwhile, Mugi lies in bed thinking about his one-sided relationship with Akane, and he realizes that Hanabi wouldn't have understood him if he told her the truth about Akane. The mere thought of it makes him laugh, and he starts to think back to the last time he thought of Akane as the innocent type. At that time, he had just finished clapping Mei, and she was the one who told him about Akane's bad habit. Since he didn't believe her, he agreed to join her and keep tabs on Akane to see what she was up to at night. So when Mugi saw Akane with an older dude, he cried himself to sleep that night. But the next day came, and he still received Akane as his tutor. While she prepared for their study session, Mugi noticed she was still wearing the same clothes she had worn with the old man from last night. But rather than see her as a trifling hoe, he let her off the leash, thinking she couldn't survive without getting pumped and dumped by multiple guys. So while he thought of her like that, it became easy for him to see her as a fragile, sympathetic girl, and he developed a soft spot for her. Midway through their session, Akane teased him on purpose, and it took the grace of the gods for Mugi not to tie her up and clap her to insanity. As it went on, he fell deeper into her trap to the extent that clapping Mei wasn't fun anymore, and she noticed it. Back in the present, he realizes that it's Saturday, so since he has nothing better to do, he decides to meet up with Mei again. Though she hasn't seen him in a long time, she can tell he only called her cause he was thirsty, so she decides they should head to a motel close by and get down to business. On reaching there, Mugi wastes no time as he unleashes several years of hunger and thirst on her. But even after she gets a seizure from what he's packing, she leaves the motel without saying a word. On Monday, he resumes school and almost ignores Hanabi when she calls out to him. During lunch break, they chill out at their usual spot, but from Mugi's behavior, Hanabi can tell that something is wrong. She realizes that although they spend so much time with each other, they grow into complete strangers at times and don't see each other at all. Deep down, she hates that they stopped talking like they used to, but she keeps Kanai's confession to Akane a secret from him. On second thought, she figures that Mugi might be hiding something from her the same way she's hiding what happened with Iken the other day. However, while she submits herself to him for another romantic session, she stops to ask Mugi if he slept with someone else, and he admits it. When he asks her the same question, she admits to it, and he believes that they did it because what they had was starting to feel too real. Later that day, Akane grows exhausted from teaching her students, so she sits in her office to rest. After some time, Kane shows up and interrupts her rest. Meanwhile, Hanabi joins Mugi at his place. and she tells him to go ahead and eat her cake. Back in school, Akane remembers that she didn't give Kanae an answer when he tried asking her out, so she starts looking for ways to turn him down because she can't deal with how boring he is. Somehow, she agrees to go on a date with him at night. But it doesn't go well since she ends up drinking all the alcohol while Kanae decides to stay sober. After they're done at the restaurant, Akane walks out, regretting why she agreed to go out with him. But when she slips and he catches her, he mistakes her for Hanabi, and though she previously wanted to reject being his girlfriend, she reconsiders it and kisses him. Deep down, she only did it because she finds Kanae's attachment to Hanabi interesting, and she aims to exploit it. In the meantime, Mugi notices a fading hickey on Hanabi's neck, so he grows jealous and kisses her there so his hickey remains instead. After that, Hanabi tells him to go all the way tonight. And it shocks him because it's her first time, and she might not be able to handle what he's packing. Elsewhere, Akane joins Kanae to watch the skyline, more out of pity than anything else, and afterward they end up at a motel. Once they're inside, Akane feels disgusted when Kanae asks if he can touch her, even though she's tipsy and clearly vulnerable. In her mind, she wonders why Hanabi is so crazy about him, but casually drops Hanabi's name to manipulate him, making him feel comfortable enough to go through with it. At the same time, Mugi tries to sleep with Hanabi and swipe her V card, but he's forced to stop when she cries out in pain. When Hanabi recovers, she can't understand why she can't open up to Mugi, but then he slips up by treating her like she's being needy, so she gets pissed and dresses up to leave. On her way out, Mugi tries to stop her, but she brushes him off and heads back to her room, feeling empty and alone. The next morning, when she gets to school, Akane passes by and casually tells her she slept with Kanae last night. Last night, things got heated between Kanae and Akane when the helpless dude finally grew a pair and clapped her all the way to Cloud 9, though she still expected him to perform better. In the present, Hanabi's world crumbles as she processes the thought of Kanae sleeping with Akane, and she feels useless, convinced that Akane is robbing her of everything. While sitting in class, she starts thinking about the perks of playing with people's emotions, wondering if Akane actually feels good about doing it. But after giving it a second thought, she decides she'll change so she can make everyone obsessed with Akane fall under her own charm instead. A part of her hates the path she's choosing, so it materializes as her other self and asks if she'll really go through with it, even if someone ends up getting hurt. Hanabi says she doesn't care anymore, since she's only thinking about herself. She believes that turning everyone under Akane's spell into her own might make her feel better, even though she knows she'll still feel empty once it's over. On hearing this, her other personality warns her that feelings aren't something to be toyed with or stolen. But before it can finish, Hanabi yells at it to leave. So around sunset, she meets Mugi and asks that they start a serious relationship, and he agrees. But rather than join him at home, she walks off to meet Iken and tell her about her stance with Mugi. Despite learning that Hanabi is now serious about her relationship, Iken says she doesn't care as long as she gets to see her every day and get used at night. At that moment, she tells Hanabi that she'll do anything she wants, so she kisses her to show she's serious. However, Hanabi pushes her back, insisting that she doesn't want to see her after school anymore, then runs away into the sunset without looking back. Despite that, Iken swears never to let her go, so she follows Hanabi to the library the following day. There, Hanabi assumes she's trying to act normal as if yesterday didn't happen, but she is shocked to find Iken's fingerlings moving up her skirt. While Hanabi tries to breathe, Iken tells her they can play scissors in school, but she's forced to lower her voice since they're in the library. She uses her book to communicate with Hanabi, telling her about how she'd like to be punished. Meanwhile, Hanabi feels bad about using her and wishes to be tied up and punished instead. But before that can happen, Hanabi catches a fever and is forced to rest at the infirmary, where Iken comes to see her. When Iken kisses Hanabi again, Hanabi tells her to stop, but Iken says it's okay since no one knows about them. Curious, she asks why Hanabi wants to start a serious relationship with Mugi and wonders if she's doing it to get Kanae's attention. Before Hanabi can answer, Iken tells her not to go through all the trouble of dating for attention. She explains that it's easy for a lady to make a man fall for her and proceeds to give a few tips. First, she says to fake opening up and appear innocent, but always make sure her true feelings remain locked up. The following day, Hanabi's mom sends her to get supplies at the mall, and on the way back, she bumps into Takuya. Takuya immediately assumes she's Akane's student and tries to riz her into spending the night. But Hanabi grows irritated and decides to leave. When she realizes that Takuya is one of Akane's pawns, though, she decides to stay back and entertain the degenerate loser because she wants to make him fall for her. On remembering Iken's advice from yesterday, Hanabi puts up a false front and tries to lure Takuya into becoming more interested in her. However, when Takuya asks about Mugi, she tells him that there's nothing going on between them, then agrees to give Takuya her number so they can meet up later. Later that afternoon, Hanabi waits for Takuya at a spot and ignores Mugi when he texts her. Takuya shows up a while later and finds it weird that she's wearing her school uniform. He takes her out to play games and do the usual things you losers watching this video do. But at some point, Hanabi grows irritated because she knows Takuya might want to touch her, so she switches things up and asks about his relationship with Akane. Takuya says he knows that Akane is a trifling hoe who thirsts for men, but he's cool with it since he gets to spend time with her every now and then. He then asks Hanabi to be his chick, and it irritates her because she feels he wants to recruit her the same way Akane recruits other guys. On second thought, she pretends to accept his offer and tells him her V-card hasn't been swapped yet, so he starts seeing her as an innocent lady and wishes to be her first. While they kiss, all the blood leaves Takuya's brain to somewhere else, so he tells Hanabi to join him at a motel so they can develop plot. On seeing Hanabi's reaction, he tells her he'll be gentle, but Hanabi insists that she's not ready yet, since her feelings aren't in the right place. Deep down, she admits she liked it when Mugi touched her while she was thinking about Kanae, though she begins to realize she's been longing for Mugi himself. At some point, Takuya tries getting intimate with her, but she turns red and refuses because she doesn't feel confident in herself. Meanwhile, Takuya gets fed up with her drama and tries to leave. But when Hanabi notices that she might lose him, she holds him back and tells him she's scared. Hearing this softens Takuya's heart, so he pulls her in and promises to take things slow. They call it a night and look forward to seeing themselves again. As Takuya walks away, Hanabi thinks and realizes that Akane is good with men because she has enough self-worth that can't be shaken. Hanabi also figures that she places her worth on what people think of her, and it hurts her that she's become so weak and useless. On her way home, she stops by and sees Kanae from a distance, triggering a memory of him in the past. At that time, Hanabi opened up to him about her dad leaving her after she was born. She told him her relatives confirmed it and that her father had a new family somewhere else. Hanabi teared up while she opened up to Kanae because she felt like her father never wanted her. So Kanae consoled her and promised that they wouldn't break apart, because their relationship would never become romantic. Presently, Hanabi jolts awake from this memory and wonders what it would be like to be intimate with the person she's in love with. Later that day, Iken meets Mugi at school and tries to make him feel insecure about Hanabi, warning him not to let his guard down. As she walks away, Mugi recalls that Hanabi admitted to being in bed with someone else, but he brushes off the thought of her cheating since she recently asked him to take their relationship seriously. Later, he meets Hanabi after school and asks her to join him back home, but she declines, fumbling an excuse about needing to be up early tomorrow. Mugi reads no meaning into that and walks home, ignoring all the glaring red flags. But Noriko shows up at his place to warn him about Hanabi. When she says Hanabi doesn't want him and begs to be her replacement, Mugi remains unfazed and instead asks her out on a date. With tears dripping down her face, she agrees to go out with him since it's the first time he's asked. Later that evening, Hanabi grows frustrated as Takuya blows up her phone with messages about how he wants to tie her up and punish her. A few years ago, Noriko went out on a date for the first time with a guy from school, and though she liked the experience, she felt it would have been better if she had gone out with Mugi instead. In the present, she lies in bed and feels bad because she can't even remember the name of the first guy who took her out on a date. After she gets out of bed, she makes breakfast, but ends up yelling at her father, who thinks she's getting too worked up about her summer break. She denies her old man breakfast, and once she's done eating, she gets her makeup done while keeping in mind that she needs to look her best because she's going out with Mugi. Later that day, she meets up with Mugi, and the dude gives her no compliment for her outfit. Instead, he just asks where she'd like to go. In the meantime, Hanabi joins Takuya for another date, and this time, Takuya teases her by snooping through her phone. But he scrolls a bit too fast and ends up getting smacked in the face when he opens the wrong folder on Snapchat. Even so, Hanabi stays pissed and decides to call it quits on the date, but Takuya begs her to stay and promises to make it up to her at a motel. The mere thought of being alone with him in a motel pisses Hanabi off even more, so she snaps and asks if all he ever thinks about is plot. Shockingly, Takuya says yes and admits that he's as degenerate as anyone who clicked on this video. He then proceeds to whisper all the things he'd like to do to her, which makes her turn red and shaky. However, Takuya suddenly gets a call, and after answering it, he bids Hanabi farewell because he's found someone else who will let him smash. On the other hand, Noriko tells Mugi that she'd like to watch a movie, and though he agrees, she wonders if he'll find it boring. On the way, she secretly wishes he would at least hold her hand to today. Later, while they watch a movie, Noriko grows nervous because she didn't expect the seating to put them so close together. But when she finally gathers the courage to hold Mugi's hand, she tears up, wondering how it would feel if he could love her the same way she loves him. They finish the movie around sunset, and as they leave the theater, Noriko wonders how Mugi felt about her action earlier. Deep down, she wants to pour her feelings out to him, but she decides not to, because the date alone makes everything feel unreal. She snaps out of her thoughts when Mugi asks her to join him for dinner at a restaurant. Elsewhere, Hanabi pulls up Mugi's contact on her phone, intending to call him, but she gets caught up thinking about what happened earlier. Around noon, she was out with Takuya, and she had held him back from leaving when he wanted to go see another girl. When Takuya saw her reaction, he thought she was finally going to let him smash, but since she stayed indecisive, he called it quits and walked away. As he left, Hanabi wanted to stop him again, but she choked on her pride, leaving her miserable in the present. While she reflects on it, she grows comfortable with the fact that she at least made Takuya lust after her. But it's still not enough, because she wants to feel other people's desire for her, just like how Akane toys with her victims' feelings. At the same time, she realizes her hypocrisy and notices she's becoming more like Akane, wondering when she went from loving Kanae to making men drool over her. With the few surviving brain cells she has left, she calls Mugi to meet up again, but he ignores her. As Noriko finishes her meal, she figures the date is about to end soon and makes peace with it, knowing it will feel more like a dream than reality. All the while, Mugi notices that she's been avoiding his gaze, so he pulls her back and asks what's wrong. Instead of answering directly, Noriko tells him that she had fun throughout their date and that she'll cherish the memory for the rest of her life. She then summons the courage to tell him how much she loves him, and though Mugi is shocked, he pulls her in for a passionate kiss. Meanwhile, Hanabi returns home feeling lonely, hating the fact that she can't call anyone to spend the night with her. As time passes, Noriko ends up in Mugi's apartment, lying in bed as she admits that she had fun with him. But Mugi doesn't believe her, thinking she's lying because they only did simple things. So when he asks again, Noriko tells him the date lacked a bit of romance. In the distant past, she used to pray to God before going to bed, asking him to make Mugi her Prince Charming. But she eventually faced the sad reality that they were so different and might not actually be compatible with each other. One day, she cried because of it, so Mugi took pity on her and promised never to break apart from her. However, Noriko knew from that moment that she was just given a pass, and she played it to her advantage to make Mugi see her as a cute, innocent girl. But in reality, she wants to drop the facade and act more like her true self while with Mugi, especially because he already has a girlfriend. Despite all that, she still wants Mugi to fill her up with his fresh yogurt drink, so she pulls him in for another kiss and tells him how much she loves him. Hearing this softens Mugi's heart, so he escalates the kiss until he reaches her plot. At this point, though, Noriko grows sensitive because she doesn't like how small her milkers are, worrying that Mugi will compare them to Akane's. When Mugi realizes this, he reassures her that he likes flatboards too, and he proceeds to eat all of her cake. Midway through, he stops because he feels bad about taking advantage of her feelings, but Noriko urges him to continue, since she wants to give herself completely to him. However, she eventually reverts to her senses and realizes that what she's doing will only cause her pain, so she pulls away and leaves. The next morning, Mugi meets Hanabi to apologize for being distant recently, and though Hanabi seems cool with it, she suggests that they should tell their crushes how they feel before the summer vacation ends. The suggestion takes him by surprise, but Mugi looks forward to it, because at this point, he feels like he has nothing else to lose. A few days later, Hanabi grows frustrated with the amount of assignments she has to finish during the summer break. Mugi takes a look and realizes he should have quit school already, while Hanabi regrets not joining Iken at a prep school. However, they both agree that once they're done with their assignments, they'll confess their feelings to their respective lovers. Elsewhere, a guy named Atsuya stands out in the city because of his height and long hair, while some chicks secretly wish to get hit by what he's packing. One of them summons the courage to offer him a promotion deal where he'll become a model for her company, though he knows clapping her would be one of the benefits. He declines because he isn't comfortable with cutting his hair. Right then, Iken shows up and pulls him away, and it turns out they're cousins. She drags him all the way to the prep school they attend, and he grows nervous when their eyes meet. Though they're cousins, Atsuya has always wanted to eat her cake and clap her cheeks, and they only started talking again because of a relative's funeral that happened recently. Before then, they hadn't seen or spoken to each other for about 6 years. So when they finally met after all that time, Iken realized her thing for ladies only started because she never came across tall, attractive guys packing monsters. In the same way, Atsuya noticed how cute she had gotten, and he couldn't resist the urge to ask her to be his girlfriend, only to get rejected and slapped in the face. After taking that double L, he knew better than to try again. But deep down, he still admires her beauty. Somehow, he manages to take her out on a date, and from the way she acts, he can tell there's someone else in her life. Eventually, Iken tells him that the person she likes is a girl, insisting that she could never have feelings for him. Curious, Atsuya asks if she likes her crush only because she's a girl. And when Iken says no, he tells her he still has a chance because her feelings aren't based on gender alone. In the meantime, Mugi calls it quits on studying and proceeds to develop plot with Hanabi. Midway through, he stops because he's worried about being rejected by Akane. But Hanabi pulls him closer and begs him to continue. Though he wants to, he stops again because he's starting to catch feelings for her, and at the same time, she feels the same way. That evening, while Mugi walks her home, Hanabi realizes she can no longer compare him to Kanae because she's fallen for him. But she still starts to feel some type of way when she scrolls through her old pictures of Kanae. Seeing them makes her recall a time in the past when Kanae first got his teaching license. Back then, Hanabi congratulated him for following his passion, and it moved him to tears because so much time had passed, and it meant Hanabi was growing up too. He then asked her to join him on a stroll, and after she agreed, he held her hand and they walked off together. Currently, Hanabi clings to this memory, thinking of him as the best man in the world. The next day, she meets Mugi and tells him she has decided to meet Kanae and open up to him. Mugi seems fine with it and suggests they meet up again after they both get rejected, and Hanabi agrees. Deep down, she feels sad about what might happen when she confesses to Kanae, but Mugi notices her mood and hugs her. He then gives her a forehead kiss to calm her down, but after he leaves, Hanabi finds herself growing too attached to the way he makes her feel. Just as planned, Mugi meets Akane the following day to tell her how he feels, though he's already bracing himself for rejection. He knows she puts up a fake front to deceive people, but he still falls victim to her charm and lets her take the lead. At a restaurant, Akane tries to start a conversation with him. But while she talks, Mugi can't help but think about all the guys she's been with. Despite that, he grows a pair and confesses his feelings, but Akane claims she didn't know he was into her. Mugi sees through her gimmicks and calls her a liar, but she counters by telling him she loves him. Though she tries to make him believe it, Mugi refuses to yield because he knows exactly how much of a fox she is after watching her all this time. A few years ago, when he first met her, he noticed how she was always entertaining different guys who wanted to smash. The only thing that kept him hooked was the fact that he couldn't have her all to himself. But now, Akane uses this very weakness to distract him from seeing how damaged she really is. She tells him she's always cared about him and somehow ends up in his apartment, acting all innocent. When Mugi gets fed up with her lies, he snaps and calls her a narcissistic siren who never truly falls in love with anyone. Yet he shuts down like a battery when Akane rubs his face and asks why he even invited her over. Mugi tells her he wants to change her, and he feels confident because of his monster inches. Meanwhile, Hanabi meets up with Kanae and finally opens up about her feelings for him. When he hears that she's been in love with him for years, he quickly understands the pain she's carried and hugs her. while silently swallowing the pill that he can't leave Akane. As a result, Hanabi is moved to tears, but after he leaves, she feels lighter because she can now move forward with Mugi without looking back. A few days later, Hanabi wakes up to a text from Iken, who asks if she's done with her assignment. After replying, she recalls what happened with Kanae and tears up because she got rejected. But what really bothers her is that Mugi hasn't reached out since yesterday, when he only sent her a short sorry text. She then starts to wonder if things worked out between him and Akane, and it pisses her off that they're not communicating. From knowing the kind of person Akane is, Hanabi realizes that Mugi might get tricked even if she accepts him. But it also dawns on her that Mugi might actually want to get tricked as well. Before she can think too hard about it, Iken reaches out again asking if she'd like to go on a trip, and Hanabi agrees without thinking twice. Later that morning, she gets ready and heads out to meet Iken, who doesn't hold back as she gets close and touchy with her. Though Hanabi feels uncomfortable with the whole public display thingy, she calms down when Iken reminds her that no one around them knows who they are. From there, they embark on a trip to the outskirts of town. And on the way, Iken tells Hanabi that they're going to an old relative's house. On getting there, Hanabi falls in love with the place, and Iken tells her that there is no one else in the house, meaning they can do anything. However, when she opens the door to let her in, Atsuya appears on the other side, leaving both girls in utter shock. That evening, they all share dinner, but the awkward silence at the table makes Iken feel restless. Hanabi, on the other hand, enjoys her meal and heads off to take a shower once she's done. While she's at it, Iken joins Atsuya to wash the dishes, and when her cousin gets too close to her, she complains. But rather than listen, Atsuya claims the kitchen is too small and uses Ott as an excuse to bite her ear. This pisses Iken off, and she yells at him, especially because his sudden arrival ruined what she wanted most, which was to be alone with Hanabi. She's frustrated that Kanae broke Hanabi's heart and wanted to use this trip as a chance to win her over, but she hates that Atsuya's presence is ruining everything. She then wonders how he knew she was coming here, and Atsuya says he checked on her house. After that, Iken continues crashing out, only for Atsuya to coldly tell her that things will never work out with Hanabi. From Iken's reaction, he predicts that she only wants one final moment with Hanabi, and this pisses her off because it's true. As she storms off, she ends up in Hanabi's room, struggling to resist the urge to eat her cake. Finally, she gives in but tells Hanabi to be quiet, or else Atsuya will be gooning to her voice from the next room. After a few hours of playing scissors, Hanabi gets out of bed and notices a train ticket inside Eken's diary. On checking it, she realizes it's the same train ticket from the time they first met, and alongside it, Iken has kept the wrapper from the candy Hanabi gave her that day. Iken wakes up in tears as she sees Hanabi flipping through her diary, because the day they met means so much to her. A while later, Hanabi heads out for a walk and bumps into Atsuya, who asks to join her. He leads the way to a lake, and though they have no real bond, he suddenly asks her who she likes. The question throws Hanabi off guard, but when Atsuya insists, she admits she doesn't know who she likes. On hearing this, Atsuya advises her to make a decision about her feelings for Iken, because she's not the kind of girl who deserves to be treated as a second option. Deep down, Hanabi knows that's exactly what she needs to do, and that she has to decide before the end of her little vacation. But she still can't bring herself to let go of Iken just yet. Later, both girls go out shopping, and when they're done, they rest in a field to sightsee. While they sit there, Hanabi notices how excited Iken is, but she feels guilty knowing she's going to lose her when they kiss. That evening, they return home only to find that Atsuya has caught a cold. As he heads off to nap, he signals to Hanabi, and she realizes it's time for her to clarify things with Iken. She delays by playing video games with her, but accidentally blurts out that she used to play video games at Kanae's house. From Hanabi's slip, Iken figures out that Kanae is the man she's been in love with. But as Hanabi recalls the pain of her rejection, Iken hugs her and praises her for having the courage to face him. Though she knows Hanabi wants to clarify things, Iken insists on speaking first, thanking her for spending time with her, apologizing for being selfish, and admitting she took advantage of her emotions. But Hanabi argues that she's the selfish one. Even so, Iken tells her she's fine with everything, and that she had already decided to break away from her even before inviting her on the trip. She then tells Hanabi to sleep in a different room and take a separate bus when she leaves the next day. As Iken walks away, Hanabi feels crushed. so she runs outside and begs Iken to remain friends with her. On hearing this, Iken grows pissed and yells at Hanabi because they can't just go back to being normal friends after everything they've done to each other. She grows sad as she admits to Hanabi that she's been in love with her since the day they met, and now she just wants to be by herself. Though Hanabi insists that she open up more, Iken refuses, so they kiss one last time and decide to go their separate ways. The next morning, Hanabi leaves the house while Iken stays behind to take care of her sick cousin. A week later, the summer break ends, and Hanabi shows up at school, painfully recalling all the hurt from the people she's walked away from. After school, she heads home, and along the way, Nariko spots her and asks why she looks so sad. From Hanabi's reaction, Nariko can tell she got dumped, but Hanabi flares up when she mentions how much she's loved Mugi. In the meantime, Mugi lies in bed, getting teased over and over again by Akane, falling deeper under her charm. While on top of him, Akane tells Mugi to say her name, and though he knows he's falling deeper into her trap, he gives in and allows lust to take over. Before Akane became a pick-me baddie, she used to be an innocent chick with an alluring vibe, until she met an older dude who swiped her V-card. As she continued to get clapped by the guy, she realized how much he loved it, so it dawned on her that she could use lust to control men. Presently, she wakes up from sleep looking exhausted from getting clapped all night, but she grows jealous of Hanabi because she wasn't privileged to grow so attached to someone at that age. When Mugi wakes up, she asks him if she's boring, and he gets defensive and starts listing all the things that make her interesting. All the while, Akane pays no attention and shuts him up with a kiss, pleased that she's made him fall for her all over again. However, Mugi falls too deep and ends up asking her out on a date next weekend. But Akane declines, revealing that she'll be with Kanai by then. Hearing this shatters what's left of Mugi's heart into pieces, while Akane wonders why he keeps making the same mistakes. Mugi looks sad at school when he thinks about his situation with Akane, so when class is over, he heads to her office and begs her not to go out with Kanai. Akane just smiles and asks if he's jealous. And on hearing this, Mugi wonders why she hasn't been stabbed by some dude yet because she deserves all the heat. But despite that thought, he pulls her in for a kiss and pins her on a table, admitting that he's pissed. Akane then asks if he hates her, but he ignores the question and just begs her not to go out with Kanai tomorrow. When he asks how she would feel if he told her he hates her, she simply tells him she likes him instead. On the way home, he thinks about her and realizes she's the kind of girl who spreads her cheeks with no strings attached. Despite knowing this, he still loves her, but a part of him wonders if he'll ever measure up to Akane, and he ends up feeling stupid when he can't answer himself. The following day, Kanai meets Akane and takes her to an aquarium. But she grows bored mere seconds after arriving and convinces him to go somewhere else. At their next stop, Akane wonders why Kanai isn't pushing for them to stop by a motel. Because every other guy she's been with just wants to get to the clapping as fast as possible. Though she notes that she's been with other guys like Kanai, who would like to clap her, but wouldn't make a move, she feels like Kanai's case is completely different. When she thinks back, she recalls that they've smashed already, but she was the one who initiated it and starts pointing out strange things about her dealings with Kanai. First, she notes that he's only clapped her once but never pushes to do it again. Next, she notices that he continues asking her out on dates like everything is normal. And lastly, she realizes the situation makes it look like she's the one pursuing him, when she actually wants him to be the one chasing after her. On seeing that she's crossed her own boundaries with him, she chokes on her ego and decides she'll discard him. After their date, Kanai offers to walk her home, but she declines and tries to break up with him. Before she can get the words out, Takuya shows up with some chick and mocks Akane for being with another guy. He roasts her, telling her she makes Mia Khalifa look like a saint, but the girl he's with smacks him and reminds him he's no different. Meanwhile, Akane fights the urge to bury him 6 feet deep, keeping up her fake front as Takuya exposes her to Kanai. After Takuya leaves, Akane tries to twist the situation to make Kanai dump her instead. She admits to everything Takuya said, claiming she's done even worse. But as she tries to walk away, Kanai pulls her back and hugs her, telling her he'll accept her as she is. Akane grows shocked hearing this, wondering how twisted Kanai must be to say that. Later that night, she uses Mugi to ease her stress while trying to process why she's starting to get attached to Kanai. Curious, Mugi asks if she has feelings for anyone, and though she says yes, he starts spiraling, knowing it's never going to be him. The next morning, he hugs Akane and begs her to go on a date with him. Even though she tries to brush it off, he insists and opens up to her about his feelings again. So Akane pities him and finally agrees. Akane's inner desire is to have all the men's thoughts and feelings. But deep down, she feels disconnected because she's unable to process why others get mad when she crosses the line. Suddenly, Kanae appears in her thoughts, asking her why she's acting that way, and she doesn't give a response. Later, she wakes up next to him and teases him, saying their situation is similar to having an affair. As usual, Kanae acts like an embarrassed nerd, and she sighs at him. Back in town, Hanabi's classmates call her on the pretext of seeking advice, but when she meets them, they interrogate her about her relationship with Mugi. Hanabi informs them that the last time she met up with Mugi was before summer break, and she might not see him again. Meanwhile, Akane and Kanae arrive at their destination, and on their way to the inn, Kanae tries to have normal conversations with her. She recalls the question he asked her earlier, and she notes that maybe it's her life's work. When they arrive at the inn, Kanae tries to take things slow, but Akane pretends to be tired to lure him in and figure out how to define their relationship. Concerned, he checks her temperature, but when she pulls him closer and tells him to rest, he storms out of the room to get her a glass of water. Shocked, Akane wonders how she even ended up with him. So she thinks back and recalls that he only clapped her because he was drunk on their last date. Later that night, Kanae relaxes in the hot spring, noting that it feels like a dream to be on a trip with Akane. He gazes at the sky, but can't see the stars because of his poor eyesight, so he makes up his mind to enjoy them after his bath. Determined, he steps out of the hot spring with plans to stargaze with Akane. But he drops his glasses, breaking them in the process. As a result, he struggles to find his way back to the room. And when he finally gets there, he's dazzled by how pretty Akane looks. Minutes later, they sit by the window, drinking alcohol and watching the moon. Kanae tells her she's prettier than both the moon and the stars. Puzzled, Akane asks what he meant when he said she didn't have to stop being a slut, and he responds that it's because she loves it. She wonders if he's not bothered by that. But when he thinks deeply about it, she grows nervous. She immediately blurts out that he has to hate her behavior. But instead he asks her if she'd hate him for not being upset, and she admits she would. Once again, he sweeps her off her feet by telling her he loves her despite everything. Akane can't process how that's possible, because she believes love is tied to being loved back. She breaks into tears and asks him why he feels that way about her. So he closes the gap between them, kisses her forehead, and hugs her. Despite being a literature teacher, Kanae admits it's hard to explain why he loves her, and all he knows is that he wants the person he cares about to live a happy life. Still clinging to him, Akane tells him that his desires aren't enough, asking why he doesn't want more, but he tells her that once he starts wanting more, he won't be able to stop. Kanae then takes off her clothes and admits he's scared he might hurt the person he loves if he can't control his desires. She corrects him, saying that even if the person he wants ends up getting hurt, if it's a special kind of pain, then it'll only make them stronger. At that moment, Akane finally realizes she's been understood, and the two of them make love passionately. The next morning, they wake up hungover, and Akane asks if he remembers what happened last night, and Kanae hugs her tightly and assures her that he does. Later, as they watch the horizon, Kanae calls her by her first name and nervously proposes marriage. Shocked, Akane thinks about how calculative she's always been and admits it won't be easy for her to change. She agrees and warns him that she'll cheat from time to time, but Kanae pulls her in and hugs her with joy. When they get back, Akane goes on a date with Mugi. He notes that it's their first and final date, and they spend the day sightseeing. Mugi recalls the time when she was still his tutor and confessed that she loved teaching. He found it odd because just moments later, she said she didn't want to be remembered by anyone when she died. He quickly pointed out the hypocrisy in her words, but deep down, he related to her, even if only slightly, because he knew all her actions stemmed from wanting freedom from boredom. That was when he made the vow to come for her. Now, as they sit together at a restaurant, Mugi plans to do everything he can to make sure she never gets bored again. As his feelings for her resurface, he makes up his mind to confess to her, but before he can, she breaks it to him that she's getting married. Shocked, Mugi doesn't know how to react at first. Then, as he processes the information, he notices that she's no longer the same teacher he once knew. She looks genuinely happy, unlike before, when she always seemed lonely, so he congratulates her. Later that night, as he parts ways with her, Akane thanks him and says she loved his face. She asks him to confirm that she's terrible, but even then, he doesn't blame her. She tells him he's kind before walking off, but he denies being kind and bursts into tears as he watches her leave. Suddenly, he gathers the courage to run after her and calls out her name. He tells her he'll never forget who she was, and admits he was wrong to think he could change her. With tears in his eyes, he confesses that he loved her just the way she was before she ever changed. Akane pauses, thanks him softly, and then walks away for good. Time passes, and on one autumn morning, while Hanabi is getting a drink, she notes that time has moved on, and she's been left behind. In preparation for the Bellflower Festival, her classmates show up and ask her to play a staged role, and after some convincing, Hanabi accepts to take on the role, and the girls scurry away happily. While they leave, Hanabi sees Mugi heading to the school and instinctively stops herself from calling out to him, though she misses him and wants to talk. Later that night, Kanai shows up at Hanabi's place and informs her about his upcoming wedding with Akane. While they stroll down the street, Hanabi congratulates him and is now convinced that things didn't work out for Mugi at all. Though he's a bit happy, he's miserable. Kanai then asks her if she's surprised that the wedding is coming up so soon, but she doesn't find it strange since it was obvious that he was head over heels in love with Akane. Hanabi notices that Kanai has switched from glasses to contacts, and she can already guess that it's Akane's doing. She says she prefers the glasses, but doesn't tell him that it's because his current look reminds her of his past self, and it hurts her. As he walks her home, Kanai asks if she'll attend his wedding, and she pinky promises him, assuring that she will show up. The day of the school festival arrives, and Hanabi watches one of her classmates take her date on a tour around the school. While the couple walks away, Hanabi thinks about the person she'd like to be with, and the first person in mind is Mugi. While missing him, she is mistakenly pushed to attend one of the school festival events, which is a fashion show, and she is stunned by Noriko's wedding dress. Noriko looks like she maxed out on beauty but paid no attention to brains, yet the crowd cheers at her beauty, while Hanabi watches everything feeling sorry for herself. When she's had enough, she leaves the room, and as she dilly-dallies in the hallway, her class rep yells at her to assist in setting up the stage for their act, so she joins them in moving the load. After a while of hard labor, and getting yelled at, Hanabi calms her nerves down in a quiet room and notes that it's nice to be alone, because it allows her to think more clearly. While in deep though, she flashes back to the wonderful times she spent on the rooftop with Mugi, how she told him she wasn't scared of being alone, and the kisses they shared which they always called meaningless. Hanabi then wonders the essence of the promise they made on that day, because they're already drifting apart. A while later, she wakes up and realizes that she was asleep, but she's shocked when she turns around and sees a tired Mugi stretching behind her. That's when it dawns on them that they both slept in the store together, and as they stare at each other, Hanabi wonders why they ever met. By March the following year, the students arrange their classroom in anticipation of their teacher's wedding. While at it, Hanabi slacks off and her class rep yells at her, so a kind classmate, Moriyama, helps her out. Later that day, she checks out the store and sees that Mugi isn't there, and after finishing up with the preparations, Moriyama tries asking her out, but Iken, who is watching, swoops in and grabs Hanabi before she can turn him down. Before running off with Iken, Hanabi apologizes to Moriyama and thanks him for his help. Iken takes her somewhere private and tells Hanabi she was joking about claiming that she belongs to her. Confused, Hanabi asks why she saved her, and Iken replies with a question, asking if she still wants her space. To her surprise, Hanabi starts crying, calling Iken a nice person. She then notices that Iken had cut her hair, so she reaches out and touches it. Iken recalls Hanabi always praising her hair, and presently, as Hanabi touches it, saying the hairstyle looks nice on her, Iken caresses her hand, appreciating her kind words. Later in class, as the students congratulate Kanai and Akane on their upcoming wedding, Hanabi feels sad. While watching the students present gifts to the couple, Hanabi sees one of them hand Akane a bouquet of flowers, so she isolates herself from her classmates. Kanai spots her and tries walking over, but Akane stops him, shaking her head, and goes in his stead. She hands Hanabi a flower from the bouquet, calling it a bouquet toss. Before leaving her side, Akane tells Hanabi to make sure her crush doesn't get stolen next time. Embarrassed, Hanabi tells her it's none of her concern. Later after school, as Hanabi prepares to leave the building, she sees Mugi waiting by the door, and she notes that the promise they made back then and the days they spent together had no meaning in the end. Hanabi reflects that the reason she was with him was because she felt lonely and wanted to be touched. But as time passed, she fell in love with his warmth. Now, she wonders if their contract is void or if they'll make a new one, since their crushes have completely dumped them. They walk to their usual spot, which is the empty storeroom, and talk about how their crushes have moved on. They praise each other for holding up well, and Hanabi realizes it's the first time they avoided physical comfort and simply connected through words. They talk for a long time, making up for the moments they hadn't shared. After a while, they conclude, agreeing with the saying that first love never comes true. Later that night, Hanabi opens up to him, saying she's glad she met him. Hanabi notes that they are both searching for real love, knowing it can't be easily found, and no matter how hard they pray, it might never come. They might even get hurt, with things getting worse the next time they try. Still, they'll continue to seek it. Despite not wanting to leave each other, Mugi and Hanabi say their final goodbyes, because they are looking for real love, and for that reason, they must continue to live on. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you've watched up to this point, let's confuse the fake anime watchers by commenting who you thought was the biggest scum in the story. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel and give me 10k likes so I'll post unplotted. Also, if you're into anime recaps like this, check out the next video, you might just goon to it. Peace.